we have been always eating meat and drinking milk. It's been since our ancient times. So my question to you is our is animal liberation or a vegan movement consistent with the ancient times of our land?
There are a few myths that need to be dispelled. Yes, man has had the inclination and the capacity to eat meat since a very, very long time. But even when man was in the jungle, he was primarily a herbivore. And this is borne out by scientific analysis of the fossils being dug out and many other kinds of equally rigorous scientific evidences. It is obvious that for the inhabitant of the jungle, the hunter-gatherer, it is far easier to pluck a fruit than to chase and catch an animal and then kill it and then eat it. So it is a myth that our ancient forefathers were all carnivores. They did have meat when it was probably available, and that is likely to have been quite sporadic. So man comes actually from a primarily vegetarian, herbivore background. The argument that man has always been a meat eater needs to be studied and refuted. The current splurge in meat eating is not more than 200 years old. It came along with industrialization and the popularization of thought that it is meat alone that can provide for protein or calcium or many other important nutrients to the body. It was obviously a highly unscientific belief, but it got popularized. Now, since the last 30, 40, 50 years, as we are progressing, there is tons of scientific data to conclusively prove that not only are we not historically prolific meat eaters, but also that meat eating or milk consumption has a highly deleterious effect on the human body. But then this data is now fighting against a huge mountain of habit and vested financial interests. You know of the size of the global meat industry, you know of the size of animal agriculture. They are one of the biggest industries on the face of this planet. So now, even as it becomes known that probably mankind took a wrong dietary turn quite recently, just around 200 years back, in opting for a primarily meat-based diet, yet the momentum of the last 2 centuries is making it difficult for most people to correct their mistake. And of course, added to that is the heft of the meat industry, the financial power, the political power they possess, the kind of control over media that they have, and all the levers that they can pull. So that is there.
First thing is, so a lot of people, like, so first my question is, like, I do understand there's mountains of evidence which proves the claim, but there have been lobbyist groups, or say there have been contradictory scientific research which now and then make headlines. Say, for example, we have been carnivore, so it was recently on the Times of India, we have evolved as a carnivore, and other heading being meat is not as unhealthy as we see. So I mean, I do understand, say, from past 40-50 years there have been mountains of evidences, but say now and then there are some evidences which contradict the claim, so which make people believe that there is a kind of confusion within the scientific community. So what do you have to say on that?
40s, 50s, right into the 60s, in the last century, it was still being upheld that cigarette smoking keeps you vital and active, and it was a popular belief that cigarette smoking, specifically among men, is a driver of masculinity as well. When it started becoming evident that cigarette smoking has a whole range of very, very harmful effects, when cancer cases started piling up, then the tobacco industry started sponsoring a lot of so-called scientific reports that would say that there is nothing wrong with tobacco and that cigarettes are not at all harmful for human beings. And they kept up the propaganda for another 10-20 years, almost till the end of 70s. They kept trying it till it became ridiculously impossible for them to keep pressing on with their claims. So why will they not do it? Their money is at stake. Greed can make man do anything. Greed can make man present any kind of pseudo-scientific evidence, which is nothing but blatant cheating and lying. Most of the reports that still try to defend meat consumption are sponsored by groups having vested interests. take the case of climate change as well. That climate change is happening and there is a clear scientific basis for it, was evident not today, but even 4 decades back. But then the fossil fuel industry kept sponsoring report after report that said, firstly, that there is no climate change. Then they said, oh, there probably is climate change, but it does not have to do with human activity. Global warming, they said, is not anthropogenic. Even today, they come up with something or the other that would confuse the population. That's their objective. To not let it become certain, absolutely certain, conclusively and finally certain, that climate change is happening and man is responsible for it. If you can instill some doubt in the mind of the compulsive cigarette smoker regarding whether or not cigarettes are harmful, you have given him a lease of fresh hope. He will say, it is not yet quite proven that cigarettes are harmful. So I feel licensed and entitled to continue with my cigarettes till a final proof is established. That's the little ray of hope that the addicted and the greedy mind needs. The issue has to be closed, sealed and stamped. It is final that meat eating is stupid from all kinds of reasons. And they will not let that final conclusion arrive soon. It will arrive, just as it arrived in the case of cigarette smoking, just as it finally had to be accepted by the tobacco industry that cigarette smoking is highly injurious. Today you see on cigarette packs, not only is there a warning, but there is a gruesome warning. There is that terrible face, cancer struck. It was unimaginable that the tobacco industry would agree to it 4 decades back. Today they have had to agree because now there is popular scientific consensus. But they agreed only after claiming millions of lives by spreading misinformation. Same with climate change. Now everybody is coming around to agree that yes, there is climate change and climate change is due to human activity. But they are trying to delay the inevitable. They are trying to delay that there would be ultimately a consensus. That is also what the meat industry is trying now. 50 years back, it was the tobacco industry. 2 decades back, and still it is the fossil fuel industry. And we have the meat industry, which will continue definitely with its propaganda and lies right till the end of the next decade maybe. They will evidently have to agree and submit. But then by that time they would have caused just too much and probably irreversible damage. Hmm? The thing is to speeden the process. The thing is to bring it more swiftly and more deeply into the popular consciousness that what meat eating really is.
Guruji, moving to next question. So my next question is on dairy. So what do you feel is the best approach to bring awareness about the cruelties of dairy industry, given that most Indians are heavily reliant and unaware of the realities which go in the dairy industry?
Social media. Simple answer. If social media can be used to spread all kinds of mischief, elections are being won and lost on social media, right? You know of the e-commerce volumes now. So much is happening on the internet. Then the social media is the best means to demonstrate the horrors of the meat industry to the world, right? Today you have trends and trolls. Anything can go viral overnight. You need dedicated people who can bring these things out. You need videos and gruesome videos. You need to promote them. You need to pin them. You need to frequently circulate and broadcast them. And more people need to do that, because the meat eater is a self-deluder. You cannot eat meat without firstly lying to yourself. He will not want to know what the reality of meat consumption is. He will not want to know how animals are kept and how they are slaughtered. He will not know what the conditions of milch cattle are. He'll just want to happily and blissfully, in complete ignorance, consume packaged meat or packaged milk or milk products. It has to be shown to him what is it that he is really putting in his mouth. From where is it coming? What is the process? It is not a factory product. It is not coming from a conveyor belt. It is life. You must see what that life has to go through and how that life ends just to satisfy your taste buds. So I think a lot of change can happen if just the reality of the animal farms can be brought to people. Obviously, that will not have an effect on everyone, because there are people who have reached stages of neurosis where they love to see blood flowing, where they actually want their meat slaughtered right in front of their own eyes. And there are perverts who love to actually slaughter with their own hands. So we are not talking of extreme cases of perversion here, but the normal folk, the so-called gentiles, kids, kinder folks, women, who live by some emotion, some pity, who still have not become dead, hardened and fossilized, they will be impacted, surely, when these photos and videos reach them. And if you can create that kind of a wave, a constituency on social media, then even the mainstream media will be forced to take it up. Mainstream media, is totally commercial. They will go where the numbers are. They will go where the viewers are. And if the viewers are in the vegan zone or the vegetarian zone, then the mainstream media will have to tilt towards that, cover that, use that for its own ends. And you need to go to schools. They are the consumers of the future. And they are the ones who are not yet fully conditioned. They are the ones you can talk to. I think any vegan movement must make the 8+ age group a key priority. It could even be 6+. They are the ones who must be converted. They are the ones who must be told that it is very important to know what really is there on your plate.
So next question with respect to dairy is, I had recently met a doctor because of my fever. So when I spoke to her about being a vegan, so she immediately came to me and said like, what about your protein? Where I had to take my time and explain milk is not milk is not even close to the best source of protein, or milk doesn't even have abundance of protein. So with this kind of like lesser nutritional knowledge with the doctors, and majority of the people tend to believe what doctors say. So how is that we should work?
You need to then educate the doctors, Simple. You might be an MBBS or an MD or a DM, but you could still be quite illiterate. You might still not have basic knowledge regarding the nutritional value of various food products. You could have a quack graduating even from the best medical college. And you're right. So many doctors just do not know that milk or meat are, as you said, nowhere close to being the best sources of protein or vitamins or iron or calcium, anything. In fact, there is a lot of misinformation even on vitamin B12. So, just as everybody else needs to be educated, doctors too need to be educated, because the public believes the doctors. So go to the doctors and tell them. Otherwise, yes, it is very, very common that you go to a doctor and if you are a vegetarian, he kind of scoffs at you. It's a very disdainful glance that he throws at you. Vegetarian? And that too, you see, is a relic of the 50s, 60s, 70s. It has gotten into the popular culture that to be big and strong, you have to have meat. Whereas this is so foolish. Have you never looked at an elephant? When you say that to be big and strong, you need to have meat, then surely you have never ever seen what an elephant looks like. Neither have you seen a horse, not a rhinoceros, not a gorilla or a chimpanzee. If you believe that meat eaters are all yes, ridiculous. There are two categories of professionals who are adept at turning even the staunchest non-meat eater to a meat eater. One, the ill-read doctors. Two, the totally illiterate fitness instructors. Young people like to have some mass on their body, or they might just want to keep basic fitness. The moment they show up at a gym, and if they go to a trainer and seek advice, first thing what trainer would ask is, what is it that you eat? And, you're not having chicken? How will you build mass without chicken? Which is such a fallacy, such a fallacy. And it is not coming so much out of ill intention, but out of the fact that the fellow is ill-read. He simply does not know the facts. So he needs to be educated. So target that constituency as well. Tell them that there is no need to turn the entire gym into a club of carnivores.